Okay, this is chapter 4 from this book, A Tale of Two Toes in a Hot Tub, which is really subtitled How to Improve Blood Flow. And we're going to do chapter 4. And basically, there's these two patients navigating the health system. The first guy's name is Jonathan Swift, and he was in the last chapter. This guy now is Chumpy Dumas, pronounced dumbass. Okay, so he's talking to Dr. Bunyan, the foot doctor, podiatry doctor. Bunyan says, "How's it going, Chumpy?" Chumpy, "Overall, I feel a lot better, but my toe still hurts." Bunyan, "Unfortunately, your big toe is necrotic and infected. Necrotic means that it has no blood supply and it contains dead tissue. We're going to have to amputate your big toe in order to prevent the infection from spreading to the rest of your foot and up your leg. Gangrene can be fatal." Chumpy, "Then will I be cured?" Bunyan, "The amputation will protect you from spread of infection, but you'll still have lots of medical problems." Okay, it's surgery time. Dr. Bunyan amputates Chumpy's big toe at the MTP joint, metatarsal phalangeal joint. The wound is slow to heal, but it does heal. Post-op instructions. Chumpy, "What should I do now?" Dr. Bunyan, "You've got to lose weight." Chumpy, "You don't think I've tried every goddamn effing diet? Do you think I want to be fat?" Bunyan, "Calm down, Chumpy. I understand, but most people fail at dieting because they don't know what they're doing." Chumpy, "Oh, come on, Doc. Everybody knows you just got to exercise more and eat less." Bunyan, "Did that work for you?" Chumpy, "No." Bunyan, "It doesn't work for anybody. You can't change the amount you eat. Your brain has a hypothalamus hunger center that's like a thermostat. It has a set point. And that thermostat set point makes you eat exactly whatever you normally eat of that type of food. Sooner or later, even though for willpower for a couple of days or weeks you might be able to change it, long term you can't. When a person will start binge eating and then they go back to their baselines. Chumpy, "Okay, so what do I do?" Bunyan, "You have to change what you eat. When you change what you eat, you reset that set point, the arcuate nucleus of the hypothalamus." Chumpy, "Well, what should I eat?" Bunyan, "Eat plants. When people eat a whole food plant-based diet that's low in fat, with starches and fruits to satisfy their hunger, they end up being skinny. The rice-based rural Chinese are skinny. Other Chinese persons who eat in Asia, for example, who eat lots of rice, they're skinny. When you eat other starches like sweet potatoes, for example, the Okinawans, they're skinny. The Papua New Guinea population is skinny. Look at the Tarahumara's eating corns and beans. They're skinny. The Kenyans eating a lot of corn are skinny. It just goes on and on. Starch-based populations tend to be healthy and skinny. Okay, some suggestions on how to optimize body weight. In the book, these suggestion tables are like sort of a gray background to set them apart for suggestions about nutrition information to help with health. So good foods to eat. Be 100% vegan, plant-based, whole foods, organic, starch-based. That's the healthiest diet in the world. Fruits are also very good. I know the starch gets emphasized the most, and starch is great, but fruits are also very good. It's under-recognized how good fruits are. To optimize health, one should strive to be 100% vegan. That's a big, dramatic step forward in health, is to no longer eat any animal food. Satisfy your hunger with starches like oatmeal, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, corn, squash, organic whole grains. The starches, also called complex carbohydrates, are a lot cheaper than the fruits are. Fruits taste great and they're also very healthy, but fruits tend to be kind of expensive. They spoil quickly, whereas starches, you can store them a long time and they're cheap. Okay, here's a map, and this is California over here, Baja California. Here's Mexico, and the Tarahumara population. They live in northern Mexico along the Sierra Madre Mountains, like in the Copper Canyon area. The point being is they were part of a combined population with the Pima in the past, in the 1800s. Mexican-American War, 1848, these populations got separated. The Pima are now in Arizona. They eat a standard American diet, which is a high-fat diet with oils and meats, and they've got tremendous off-the-charts obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and all the complications of that. Whereas the Tarahumara have kept their old-fashioned diet of a lot of corn and local greens, and beans, for example, and squash, and they're world-famous ultra-marathoners, really healthy. They can run 100 miles in 2 days. So here's just basically what happens to the typical American eating the SAD diet. They end up with impotence, and they end up on taking medications for that. And then they plug up their coronaries, and they'll often get a stent first, and then they'll go on to CABG, coronary artery bypass graft, so they get the big scar here. They've often got problems with gallstones, so this is a common operation to remove the gallbladder, cholecystectomy. They have a high incidence of appendicitis because their lack of fiber in meat or processed food leads to a stool ball calcifying appendicolith, blocking up their appendix, leading to appendicitis. So they get a scar here. They'll often get diverticulosis that eventually perfs, and they get diverticulitis potentially. So they have a relatively high incidence of sigmoid colon resection for diverticulitis. So it's not uncommon for them to have a whole bunch of surgical scars. And, if they get diabetes, which they very often do, if they're still alive, their diabetes will often progress from amputation of a toe, amputation of multiple toes, amputation of the midfoot, transmetatarsal amputation, and then subsequently a below-the-knee amputation, BKA, below-knee amputation. So it's kind of sad, and it's a mess. I mean, basically, you have a choice. Either you go low-fat, plant-based, or you end up getting a bunch of pills. You get drugged, and you get chopped. You get a bunch of operations. So, me personally, I don't want anybody, doing surgery on me. I don't want to be taking a bunch of pills. So, I go low-fat, low-sodium, 100% vegan. Okay. This is just a picture showing, how the high salt diet leads to hypertension because it ruins the ion gradients, making it harder for cells to pump out calcium, and calcium causes vasoconstriction when it's chronically elevated in your arterial smooth muscle cells. Okay, here's another more epidemiology information. In South America, and sort of the border between Brazil and Venezuela is the Yanomama population in the Amazon jungle. And they eat primarily plant foods. They don't add any salt to their food. They got the same blood pressure, when they're a teenager and when they're in their 70s. They only eat about 200 milligrams a day of sodium. And so-called low-salt diets that are, often recommended in America are, in the ballpark of 2,000 milligrams a day. That's a lot of sodium. And if you don't add any salt and you eat a plant-based diet, you got a good chance of being in the ballpark of around, 400 to 500, 300 to 500, somewhere in there, maybe even lower, potentially lower. Walter Kempner, he would have his patients, he would do all kinds of things to get their sodium even below 100. Now, that's pretty dramatic. You don't need to go there, but just not adding any salt to your food, only eating plant foods, your sodium intake will be pretty good. Okay, a little more epidemiology. In Kenya, they checked the blood pressures of large amounts of the population around 1929, the Lancet article, and they didn't have any problems with hypertension. And so the point being is a lot of, black persons in the United States, they say, oh, they've got so much hypertension, maybe it's genetics, salt, related to salt sensitivity and all this stuff. Oh, they don't have any problem with hypertension. When they eat a plant-based diet like their original traditional diet, they don't have any high blood pressure. So that's an important thing to realize because a lot of persons get problems with high blood pressure leading to kidney failure, etc. Okay, here's some more epidemiology information coming from Finland. The Finland population, eating a lot of meat and dairy, had very high cholesterol, lots of coronary artery disease. They made this national movement, back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s to reduce their dietary fat intake and reduce their dietary sodium. They had dramatic improvements in their health. This guy, Pekka Puska, a real famous doctor from Finland, led what was called the Karelia Project for an area of Finland called Karelia. And by making these multiple health interventions, cardiovascular mortality dropped 84%. That's an incredible thing. And the point it just shows is it's not some rare individual. Anybody who does this will get these results, will get dramatically improved reduction in their cardiovascular risk, an extraordinary reduction. All right, just more epidemiology. Okinawa, which is like southern Japan, I drew it to looks like a sweet potato, and basically they had incredibly good health. They had some of the longest lives in the world. They're in the blue zone centenarians from Dan Buettner and National Geographic studying the healthiest populations in the world. And, none of this stuff is genetic. The Japanese had some of the best long lives in the world. And then as soon as they go to Hawaii, their health gets worse because they start eating a more standard American high-fat, high-oil diet. They go to California and their health gets worse. There's a population in California, the Seventh-day Adventists, who live especially like around Loma Linda. It's like a suburb of Los Angeles, and they eat largely a vegan diet for religious reasons, but they have the longest lives of anybody in the world, and this is the longest long-term documented lifespan of any population in the world. Loma Linda vegans, with the females living about 88.6 years, and the men living about an average of 85.3 years. And Dr. McDougall worked with that population, and he said a lot of those people were not really that healthy. They were sort of like philosophic vegans, if you will, rather than true health vegans eating high-fat diets, for example. And the point is, people could probably live significantly longer if they, did everything right, so to speak. 100% vegan, low sodium, got some exercise, got some sunshine. So that's a reason for optimism. Oh, another example of the power of the low-fat, low-sodium diet. Walter Kempner had hundreds of patients where he would have all their chest X-rays, their eye exams, photographs of their retina, and their EKGs. And it was routine that their blood pressure would come back down to normal. Their chest X-rays would often improve. Their eyes would often improve. Rather extraordinary results. Some people even think that Kempner was the best doctor who ever lived. It was rather incredible. He saw about 19,000 patients, and he kept pretty good results, and he published a lot of his data, but it's not widely known. And what did he do? He put him on a rice-based, 100% vegan diet. He later on would sometimes let people eat tiny bits of meat, but the initial therapeutic diet was a very, very low-fat, very, very low-protein plant-based diet with rice as the main source of calories. I've talked about that in other lectures. Oh, crap. I didn't mean to do that. Here we go. Okay, here's the last slide. Okay, from Chapter 4 of How to Improve Blood Flow book. Eat vegetables for nutrients. Eat at least one salad per day. Be careful about nuts and seeds because they're high fat. Always avoid any type of oil. They're all liquid fat. They're all toxic. Dr. McDougall says the fat you eat is the fat you wear. I realize there's some people who contest that, but it's pretty accurate. McDougall is about as accurate as it gets in the nutrition world. Junk food, processed food with no fiber, usually has 4 or more ingredients. Any food with multiple ingredients, they're probably going to be putting all kinds of things in there, like MSG, for example, or preservatives you don't want. I only eat organic for that reason. Food additives to avoid. We talked about the issues with sodium. It's also the chloride. You don't want excessive chloride. It's a long story, but you don't want it. We talked about MSG. Then there's all these other preservatives. They're bad. They're all bad. You always want to just like buy something with no wrapper on it. It just is. It just is a potato. It just is a sweet potato. Food dyes, they give them cute little names with euphemisms like red number 40, but if you look at them, they're very complex. Often petroleum-based chemicals. You don't want those foods. You don't want to be giving them to your kids either. It's a good idea to get your kids eating healthy. The sooner the better, because once kids get all these bad habits, it's hard to change them. Bad beverages. I only drink water. All the soda pop is bad. I don't drink anything with caffeine. Let's see. Chumpy says, coffee is bad. Bunyan, yes. Chumpy, lots of healthy, smart people drink coffee. Bunyan, yes, but they'd be healthier without it. Dr. Esselstyn has the best results of any doctor in the world for prevention of coronary artery disease, and he tells his patients to avoid caffeine. You just look at the side effects of caffeine, and you won't want to drink it anymore. I quit years ago, and I felt much better afterwards. Chumpy, are you saying that all meat is bad? Bunyan, yes. Chumpy, but I thought our caveman ancestors ate lots of meat, and it made them strong. Bunyan, meat is much worse than most people realize, and we'll talk about it in just a moment in the next chapter. So that's it. Hope that's helpful.